Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
I was 17 the first time I realized my name didn't carry any weight in my own family. We were at the town fair in Bowie, Texas. Keith had just won third place in a demolition derby, and people treated it like he'd cured cancer. My mom cried. My dad patted his back like the Pope had knighted him. I remember saying, "Hey, I got my first paycheck today." Opened my own checking account. My dad looked up from Keith's trophy and said, "That's nice, sweetie. Just don't overdraft it." That was the tone of my childhood. No matter what I did, Keith's shadow swallowed it whole. He was 2 years older, loud, athletic, always working on trucks or flirting with the girls at the Dairy Queen. If he showed up to his part-time job at the garage, the manager thanked him like he was doing charity work. When he bought a rusted-out Silverado with bald tires, people said it was a smart investment. When I bought my first car, a used Honda I paid for with babysitting and cashiering at the grocery store, my aunt laughed and said, "Hope you like dumping money into that thing. Foreign cars never last." Quick note: before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. My name's Rachel. I'm 28. I live in a small town outside Fort Worth, Texas. Grew up here, and if you've ever been treated like the family's backup plan, this might hit home. See, when I was in high school, Keith got into a car accident. His fault, texting while driving. My parents blamed the road conditions. When I got a parking ticket senior year, they said it was a sign I wasn't ready for responsibility. They told me I should stay local. "You're not built for independence," my mom liked to say. "Better to find a nice husband and a safe job." I ignored her. Took night classes at the community college, then transferred. Got my degree in accounting. Spent 5 years grinding it out in the claims department of an insurance company, working my way up. Eventually landed a fraud auditor role in a regional office 2 hours from home. When I told my family I'd bought a small apartment, technically a condo, 1 bedroom, clean, decent area, Keith rolled his eyes and said, "A condo. Big mistake. You'll never resell it." My mom said, "Hope you read the fine print. Those HOA fees can bleed you dry. That's why we don't do that nonsense." No congratulations, no we're proud of you. Just doubt, as usual. I remember hanging up the phone, setting the keys on the counter, and saying out loud to no one, "Of course they don't get it." Then I turned on the faucet. Water pressure was low, but it was my name on the deed, my place, my life. And for the first time, I didn't feel like Keith's little sister. I didn't care what they said. I scrubbed every inch of that condo, patched up a few cracks, swapped out old outlets, and made it mine. The living room was barely big enough for a love seat and a small TV, but it was quiet, clean, safe. I paid the HOA dues on time, kept my place neat, and even made friends with one of the board members, Donna, a retired school secretary who walked her dog past my unit every morning. I was working 10-hour shifts at the office, sometimes longer when end-of-quarter audits came in. On weekends, I took fraud cases out of Houston and Dallas for bonus pay. I kept a whiteboard in my kitchen with every bill and balance. Every extra dollar went into savings. It wasn't flashy, but it was solid. My name was on every account. My credit score went up 80 points in 2 years. Then came Thanksgiving. Keith showed up late with a black eye and a new girl on his arm. Kayla, I think her name was. He brought a 6-pack of craft beer and acted like he'd done something impressive. "Still living in that shoebox apartment?" He asked between bites of cornbread. "Man, you're missing out." Kayla and I just moved into a loft. Real high ceilings. I looked at him. "Did you sign the lease or did she?" He smirked. "Details, details." My parents laughed like that was charming. My mom even said, "Keith's always been adventurous." Meanwhile, I'd just gotten a performance bonus and picked up a side project from legal to review flagged property claims. No one asked about it. They talked about how Keith was trying his best and hustling. He'd quit 2 jobs that fall, one for disrespect, the other for being a bad fit. He was also behind on rent again. My parents loaned him $500 and didn't blink. I chipped in for the Thanksgiving turkey and brought homemade pie. Not a word. A few weeks later, my manager pulled me into a side meeting after our Monday huddle. "We've got something big, international case. Quiet for now, but it's major. Internal fraud crossing the border. We need someone who knows the red flags." I said, "I'm listening." "It's based in Calgary, 3 to 4 months. You'd be supporting legal and security, paid housing, hazard bonus, corporate credit card." I said yes before she finished the sentence. Back home that night, I told my mom first. "Canada?" She asked like I said Mars. "That's Far. You really think you're ready for something like that? It's temporary, I said. It's a promotion. A big one. She sighed. I just don't want you to get in over your head. Keith called me 5 minutes later. Canada, huh? You gonna be solving maple syrup crimes? I hung up on him. That Friday, I came home to find Donna, my neighbor from the HOA, standing by her door. She looked at my suitcase and smiled. Going somewhere. Work trip, Canada. She leaned in a little. Keep your place locked up tight. The kid in Unit B had someone break in last year while he was out of town. Got it covered, I said. I'd already planned everything. Auto payments, security contacts, even gave a spare key to my parents for real emergencies. Still, something about the way she said it made me check the locks twice that night. Saturday morning, I sat in the terminal at DFW, sipping bad coffee and scrolling through onboarding documents. I felt wired, excited, terrified. But I kept thinking, this is what I worked for. All those long nights. All the holidays spent reading case law instead of baking cookies. And no matter what Keith said, that shoebox apartment was still mine. Every inch of it. Before I left, I had everything lined up like clockwork. HOA dues, electric, water, all set to autopay. Mail got forwarded to my office in Calgary. I put my security system on a tighter schedule and made a checklist for every damn lock, switch, and backup key. Then I sat my parents down and handed them the spare. Just for actual emergencies, floods, break-ins, fires. Not for, we wanted to check on things. Got it. My mom gave me that passive-aggressive smile she always used when she didn't like my tone. We're not children, Rachel. Keith leaned over from the couch. You treat that box like a military bunker. You worried the walls will walk off. Not funny, I said. It's not a joke to me. He grinned like he'd scored a point. On the drive to the airport, my mom tried one more guilt trip. You know, if this job falls through, that place could drag you under. Those condos, they don't hold value. People walk away from them all the time. I didn't answer, just looked out the window and waited for the silence to take over. When I landed in Calgary, the cold slapped me like a warning. Gray skies, glass buildings, people in long coats walking like they had somewhere more important to be. I checked into corporate housing, a soulless one-bedroom in a high-rise with beige walls and government-issue furniture. But the work, it was no joke. We were digging into fake claims that crossed 3 borders, 5 companies, and about 30 shell accounts. Every day felt like solving a 1,000-piece puzzle with no picture on the box. Security was tight. We were under a full NDA. No personal phones in the office. No unscheduled calls. We had 2 15-minute windows per week to check in with anyone outside the case. I used mine to call my parents once every few weeks. It was always the same. How's the weather up there? Cold. Everything fine at home? Yep, all good here. I'd ask about the condo, no water leaks, no notices on the door. And they'd always say, nope, everything's fine. Keith never got on the line, not once. I figured he was busy doing nothing, same as always. The only weird moment came about halfway through the project. I called on a Thursday, and my mom picked up out of breath. Everything okay? I asked. Oh yeah, just finished vacuuming. Your dad tracked in mud. I thought I heard Keith's voice in the background, but she moved fast to end the call. Don't worry about us, sweetie. Focus on your big job. And that was it. I went back to sorting through forged invoices and dummy accounts. My boss kept piling on work, which meant more bonuses. I wasn't complaining. Still, something felt off. That gut feeling you get when someone smiles a little too wide or answers a little too fast. I chalked it up to stress. But late at night, sitting in that ugly apartment, I'd picture my condo, my actual home, and wonder if everything really was fine. By the last week of the Calgary contract, I was running on caffeine and autopilot. We were wrapping up the investigation, preparing reports for legal. My boss, Martin, stopped by my cubicle and said quietly, "Conference room, now." His tone made my stomach drop. I followed him down the hall past the frosted glass doors, into a small room with a laptop already open. He shut the door and clicked a few files. "We've got a problem," he said. "There's been a suspicious property transfer involving your name." I stared at him. "What are you talking about? What property?" He turned the screen toward me. My condo's address glowed at the top of an electronic deed. Below it, a line, "Transfer completed. New owner verified." I blinked hard. That's not possible. I've never even listed it. Martin clicked another tab. It triggered a security check because of your access level in our investigation. The transfer was processed through a property management firm in Texas. They've got a new owner on file. Different mailing address, everything. My throat went dry. This is a mistake. It has to be. Look. He scrolled to a digital signature. My name, my handwriting. Someone submitted paperwork weeks ago, claiming you'd sold it. I leaned closer. My hands shook. I didn't sign that. I didn't sign anything. Martin sat back. We need to handle this carefully. If you're involved, even unknowingly, it's a conflict of interest. We're talking cross-border fraud, Rachel. I'm not involved. That's my home. My only home. He exhaled. We're flagging it internally, but you need to verify immediately. This is serious. I closed the laptop and pushed it back toward him. I'm going home. You can't discuss the case. I'm not discussing the case. I'm going to find out who's stealing my life. That night, back in my corporate apartment, I packed like a fugitive. Passport, laptop, one small suitcase. My hands were still shaking. I tried calling my parents from the company-issued phone, but my call didn't go through. Only authorized numbers worked. I sent a single text from my personal phone to my mom. Call me, ASAP. It bounced back. Delivery failed. NDA protocols. They'd locked down my outgoing communications for the final audit. I couldn't even warn my own family without risking termination or legal trouble. I booked the first flight to Dallas at my own expense. At the airport the next morning, I stared out the window as snow whipped across the runway. My reflection looked like a stranger's. Dark circles, clenched jaw. Every scenario ran through my head. Hackers, identity theft, some weird title scam. But underneath it all was a heavier thought I couldn't shake. Who had my spare key? I boarded the plane with my stomach in knots. The moment the wheels left the tarmac, I gripped the armrest and whispered, "Don't let this be real." The seatbelt light dinged off, and I pulled out my notebook. Every password, every account, every security contact, double-checked. Everything still pointed back to me. By the time we landed in Dallas, I had only one goal: get to my condo, see it with my own eyes, and figure out what the hell had happened. I didn't even pick up my luggage. I just grabbed my carry-on, called a rideshare, and told the driver to step on it. The rideshare slowed as we turned onto my street, and my chest went tight. I was expecting the familiar sight, my little condo with its cracked step and faded welcome mat. Instead, it looked like a stranger's house. The for sale sign I'd seen online was gone. A shiny new lockbox hung from the front door. My key felt cold in my palm as I jammed it into the lock. It didn't budge. I stepped back and took in the scene. Fresh paint on the siding, new potted plants on the porch. Even the blinds looked different. My stomach lurched like I'd stepped off a moving bus. I yanked my phone from my bag and pulled up the real estate listing again. The number at the top stared back at me. I hit call. Sunshine Properties, this is Becky. A chirpy voice answered. Hi, this is Rachel Myers. I'm calling about the unit on... I gave my address. Oh, you must be Keith's sister. She said like we were old friends. I gripped the phone harder. Excuse me? Keith told us you'd be calling. Said you were too overwhelmed to keep up with payments and asked him to handle the sale. Everything's closed now. Congrats on being mortgage-free. I nearly dropped the phone. I never authorized a sale. That's my home. Becky hesitated, her cheer dimming. Ma'am, we processed everything through proper channels. It's final. I hung up before I started screaming. My fingers were trembling as I dialed my mom. She answered on the second ring. Rachel, we were just talking about you. Keith saved the day. My voice cracked. Saved the day. What are you talking about? Your place, honey. He handled the mess. You should be relieved. What mess? I was never behind on anything. Keith said, put him on the phone. A shuffle, then Keith's voice, casual and smug. Hey, sis. You're welcome. You're welcome, I snapped. You stole my property. Whoa, easy. You were drowning, I got you out. You should be thanking me. I never signed anything. You forged something. He laughed under his breath. We have your signature? I turned away from the street, pacing along the sidewalk. Where? Show me. Mom's voice broke in, sounding annoyed. Rachel, calm down. You gave Keith legal rights before you left. Power of attorney or something. I gave him nothing, I shouted. A neighbor across the street stared at me, but I didn't care. Keith said, "Look, you were gone. The place looked abandoned. You're lucky I stepped in when I did. I had mail forwarding. I paid every bill. You saw what you wanted to see." "You're being dramatic," he muttered. "This is all squared away. Mortgage paid off. Property sold. You're free." Free. My voice echoed. That was my home, my savings, my life. You don't get to decide for me. Silence. Then Mom again, soft but firm. "Honey, Keith only did what you couldn't. He was trying to help." I gripped the phone until my knuckles went white. "Listen to me carefully. I never authorized this. I never signed a thing. Whoever told you otherwise is lying." Keith said, "We'll talk later." "You're worked up." "No, we'll talk now. Send me the documents, all of them, every page." He chuckled like it was a game. "Fine, but you'll see I'm right." I hung up before he could say anything else and stood on the curb, staring at my locked-up condo. The porch light flicked on automatically, like it didn't even recognize me anymore. I pulled out my phone and opened my work contacts, scrolling to my boss's number. My thumb hovered over call. Then I hit dial. I drove straight to my parents' house. No suitcase, no explanation. Just rage and a phone full of receipts. Their porch was lit up like a damn birthday party. Balloons on the mailbox, folding chairs in the yard, and a banner across the porch that said, "Congrats, Keith." Inside, people were laughing, plates clinking, cake already half eaten. My Uncle Doug was holding a beer, nodding like Keith had just landed a Fortune 500 CEO job. "There she is." My dad called out when he saw me. "Come join the celebration." "Your brother's turning things around?" I stood in the entryway, stunned. What exactly are we celebrating? Keith came strolling out of the kitchen with a slice of cake and a dumb smirk. "My business breakthrough, didn't you hear? Real estate, baby." I stepped toward him. "We need to talk. Now." He held up his hands like it was a joke. "Uh-oh, big sister's mad." I didn't laugh. "Sit down." We went to the den. I shut the door behind us. He dropped into Dad's recliner like he owned it. I stayed standing. "Walk me through what you did," I said. He licked frosting off his thumb. "It's not complicated. Called the loan company, found out you were behind. Barely, but still. So I stepped in. Used the power of attorney you gave me. Handled everything." "You mean forged everything?" He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded document. "Nah, you gave me this." He flattened it on the coffee table. It was power of attorney paperwork. Looked official. My signature at the bottom looked flawless. Too flawless. I stared at it, heart pounding. When exactly did I sign this? He leaned back, arms behind his head. "Right before you left for Canada. You were stressed, in a hurry. You said, 'Take care of anything serious if I'm gone too long.' Ring any bells?" "No," I said flatly. "Because I left straight from my office." "You weren't even there." He paused, eyes flickering just long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. I pulled out my phone. "That's a forged document. You faked my signature and used it to steal my home." He stood up. "Rachel, come on. No one's stealing anything. You weren't around. You had too much on your plate." "I didn't ask for help. I didn't give you permission, and you knew exactly what you were doing." "I saved you," he snapped. "You were gonna get buried by that place. I did the responsible thing." I didn't say another word. I stepped into the hallway, turned away from the crowd, and called my company's legal team. The line rang once. "This is Rachel Myers. We've got forged property documents in my name." 10 seconds later, my boss texted, "Filing police report. Stand by." I slipped the phone back into my coat pocket and turned to see my mom watching me from the dining room. "You okay, honey?" she asked, concerned but still clueless. "Peachy," I said. I walked past her and out the front door without another word. Behind me, Keith's voice carried through the house, still trying to charm my uncle, still spinning the story like he'd done everyone a favor. I stood on the porch under the balloon banner, feeling the cold bite into my arms, and waited. Not for Keith to apologize, not for my parents to believe me. I was waiting for the fallout to land, and I knew it was coming fast. I didn't even make it home before the fallout started. My phone rang halfway down the block, unknown number, local area code. I answered, hard in my throat. "Rachel Myers?" "Yes?" "This is Ann Foster, legal counsel for the buyers of your condo. I need to ask, why are corporate fraud investigators and local police at our office right now? I pulled over to the side of the road. Because the sale was fake. The documents were forged. There was a long pause. Excuse me? You bought stolen property. He used my name without consent. The power of attorney is fake. I never signed anything. You're victims of fraud. Her voice dropped. This could unravel everything. Yeah, I said. Welcome to my life. I hung up before she could spin it around on me. I turned the car around and drove back to my parents' house. I didn't knock this time. I just walked straight in. The party was winding down. Dishes stacked in the sink, folding chairs folded. Dad was on the couch watching reruns. Mom was boxing up leftover cake. Keith was still holding court at the dining table, spinning his story for anyone left listening. I stood in the doorway and said, "We need to talk. Now." My mom looked up, startled. "Rachel, no. Everyone sit down." They followed me into the living room. Keith tried to act casual, but I could see the sweat on his temples. His foot tapped under the coffee table. My dad glanced between us like he was watching a live bomb ticking down. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The title company, HOA, mortgage lender, and property management firm, every single one of them is now under investigation, I said. Keith sat up straighter. What? You forged documents, real estate transfer fraud, identity theft, all tied to an active corporate investigation I was working on in Calgary. My mom blinked, confused. But you said it was just a misunderstanding. I looked at her. No, you said that. He knew what he was doing. He filed forged paperwork under my name. He stole my property while I was working a federal-level case. Keith stood. Whoa, come on, that's not... Sit down, I snapped. He sat. You think this is some family squabble? You just dropped fake documents into the middle of an international insurance investigation. You have no idea how deep you're in. He looked at my dad, desperate. I didn't know it was connected to her job. That doesn't make it legal, I said. You don't get to commit a felony because you didn't know better. He was pale now. I didn't mean to, but you did. You took my keys. You forged my signature. You impersonated me to a mortgage company. That's not help. That's a crime. My mom looked at him like she was finally seeing him for the first time. My dad didn't say a word, just sat there, jaw clenched, staring at the carpet. Keith's voice cracked. I thought I was fixing it. I shook my head. No, you thought you'd get away with it. Silence, heavy and awful. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my boss. Police confirmed. Local officers en route. ETA 10 minutes. I locked my screen and looked up. This isn't over, I said. Keith's eyes darted toward the door like he was about to run. I didn't move. I just stood there, watching the air leave his lungs as it hit him. This wasn't just going to blow over. My phone buzzed again. Officers en route. ETA 10 minutes. Confirm location. I typed back one word. Confirmed. Then I set the phone face down on the coffee table. Keith sat forward, elbows on his knees, breathing hard. The cocky smirk from earlier was gone. You weren't even home, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. For months. It looked abandoned. I had mail forwarding. I paid every bill. You knew that. I mean, from the outside, it looked like no one lived there. No, Keith. You saw what you wanted to see. You decided that gave you the right. My mom, sitting stiff on the armrest of the couch, whispered, maybe he misunderstood, Rachel. Maybe he thought... I cut her off. He created fake notices and impersonated me to the mortgage company. She looked at him, eyes wide. What fake notices? Keith didn't answer. I leaned forward, right into his line of sight. You faked default letters, didn't you? Printed them at home, used letterhead from an old email. He didn't move. You practiced my signature until it looked real. You studied it off that old tax form I left in the filing cabinet. That's how you got it so perfect. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. My dad was still sitting in the corner chair, hands folded, staring down at the floor like he wasn't in the room at all. A knock at the door made Keith flinch. I stood. That's them. My mom stood too, blocking the doorway. Wait. Just wait a second. No. I walked past her and opened the door. 4 plainclothes officers stepped inside, 2 men, 2 women, badges already in hand. They looked around, calm but sharp. One of them, the lead, nodded at me. Rachel Myers. Yes. Is Keith Myers present? I stepped aside and pointed. That's him. Keith looked stunned, like he couldn't believe this was real, like it was still just some messy family disagreement. The lead officer walked up to him. Keith Myers, you're under arrest for identity theft, real estate fraud, and filing false legal documents. Stand up, please. He stammered. I didn't mean to. Hands behind your back. They cuffed him right there in front of the fireplace, next to the deflated banner that still said, "Congrats, Keith." My mom gasped like she'd been slapped. Wait, isn't there some way to— No, Mom, I said. Keith turned to look at me as they led him toward the door. I was trying to help. You were always too proud to ask. I didn't answer. The officers walked him out to the unmarked car. No sirens, no lights, just four doors shutting, and then they were gone. I stood there for a minute, the air thick as wet concrete. My dad finally looked up. His face was pale. He's my son, he said quietly. I know, I said. He's still yours. He just isn't mine anymore. He didn't respond, just looked back down at his hands. My mom was frozen near the window. Like if she stayed still long enough, maybe none of this would be happening. I grabbed my phone and keys and walked out the front door. The banner flapped once in the wind before tearing loose on one end. I didn't look back. The investigation moved fast after the arrest, faster than I expected. Within 2 days, they had a full digital trail. Keith had downloaded foreclosure letter templates off some shady DIY legal site. He'd dropped my name onto them, changed dates, slapped on a fake phone number, and printed them using our old family printer, the same one from high school. He practiced my signature over and over using an old tax form he found in a dusty file cabinet in our parents' attic. He even traced it onto the power of attorney document with carbon paper, then scanned it to make it look natural. He didn't just fake a signature, he studied me. The buyers were furious. They'd already moved in, furnished the place, even changed the locks again. But the deal got voided. They were reimbursed through fraud protection insurance, but that didn't undo the mess. They had to vacate within 30 days. The real estate agent lost her license. Turns out she'd skipped a verification step on the POA form. She blamed assumptions. The title company's lawyer tried to spin it as a tragic oversight. Their office now has a full-time compliance officer. You're welcome. Keith's plea deal fell apart the moment investigators linked his forged documents to the broader insurance fraud task force I was working. Turns out the case in Calgary included a fake claim filed from my ZIP code. That's what originally triggered the internal audit that flagged my name. So, yeah, he didn't just mess with me. He torpedoed himself in a case way bigger than either of us understood. At sentencing, the courtroom was dead quiet. He stood there in a wrinkled button-down, hands cuffed in front of him, and said, I couldn't stand that she was ahead of me. That was it. That was his explanation. 4 years, identity theft, fraudulent real estate transfer, forgery, no parole for at least 2. My parents were wrecked. My mom cried through the whole hearing. My dad didn't even try to speak to me afterward, just stared at the floor like maybe if he stayed quiet long enough, it'd all rewind. Later that night, they called me. First time either of them reached out without me calling first. My mom's voice cracked. We're sorry, Rachel. We really are. I waited. No excuses, no, he didn't mean to. Just that. My dad cleared his throat. We were wrong about a lot of things. That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from him. I didn't say much back. I couldn't. I was too tired. I'd lost my home, my trust, and a big chunk of my childhood illusion. All in one go. But for once, they saw Keith for what he really was. And they saw me for what I'd always been, the one who held it together. 6 months later, I moved back into the condo. The furniture wasn't mine. The walls had fresh paint. They'd swapped the fridge and changed the bathroom tile. But the second I turned the key and stepped inside, I felt it. That anchor in my gut. It was still mine. I walked from room to room, touching every light switch, checking every window lock. My employer had installed a full surveillance system, motion sensors, camera feeds, remote access. The guy who set it up didn't say much, just nodded and told me, "This place is sealed tighter than most banks now." Good. I wasn't taking chances anymore. Keith's conviction made the papers for about 5 minutes. Then it was just another headline no one remembered. But the record stuck. He was living in a halfway house outside Denton, working part-time warehouse shifts. Community service hours, court check-ins, therapy. We talked twice. The first time, he called me collect, said, "I thought I was helping." I answered flatly, "You never asked what I needed." He didn't respond. The second time, he was on a supervised break and spotted me in a grocery store parking lot. He walked up slow, hands in his pockets like he wasn't sure if I'd hit him or ignore him. "I get it now," he said. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him until he looked away. My parents still walk on eggshells around me. We see each other once a month, lunch at their place, short visits, no more big family dinners, no balloons, no banners. They don't bring up Keith unless I do. I think finally they see me for who I really am, not the irresponsible younger sister, not the one who couldn't hack it on her own, just someone who built something solid and almost lost it to someone who never earned a damn thing. Turns out it took felony charges to make that clear. I still get emails from our legal team. The condo case was folded into a training module: corporate fraud prevention, real estate theft, signature forgery. Every new investigator in the department watches it. They even gave it a title: The Helpful Brother.